Thank you for coming in today, Dr. Brock. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. I like long walks on the beach, the occasional apple fritter. No, I am a professor of exercise physiology at the University of Vermont.
All right.
Keep going?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a degree in nutrition, degree in exercise science, doctorate in exercise physiology, National Institute of Health postdoctoral fellowship with a Nobel laureate in cardiovascular disease.
Wow.
Published quite a bit, tenured a few years back. Director of the exercise science program and director of the physical activity and wellness laboratory. Editorial board of the International Journal of Obesity. Well, I could keep going, so I'll stop there. It sounds arrogant if I go too far with it.
No,
But since
that
I'm
was great
pre-hypertensive,
background.
this is a good, yeah.
So,
Okay.
Alright.
you mentioned that you're pre-hypertensive. When did you find this out?
I've known that I've had a little bit of elevation in my blood pressure for probably 15 years or so.
Did you go to the doctor to figure it out?
No, just through graduate school and stuff, I had to take my blood pressure quite a bit, and other people did, and it was always anywhere from like 125 to 140-ish, and sometimes a little bit over 80 for the diastolic.
Did it mean anything to you at the time?
It was interesting. As someone that had studied exercise science and nutrition and all the diseases associated with it, it was always interesting because I know that I lead a relatively healthy lifestyle, and I've exercised probably aerobically for at least 20, 25 years, so it's always interesting to me to see that number a little elevated in me, and it makes me wonder what it would be if I didn't exercise and have a decent diet.
Right.
Do you know if your blood pressure is primary or secondary?
Must be primary, yeah, because I don't think I have any underlying disease conditions that would, I hope not. I haven't heard anything yet from my primary care provider.
Have you ever sought pharmacological treatment?
Me? No, never.
Strictly exercise.
Not stuff, yeah, no. I don't know that, yeah, I'll stop there. I think I'm well within the range of diet and exercise, but you raise a good point. I mean, I do exercise and eat a relatively good diet, but it still doesn't seem to fall within a normotensive range.
So, do you feel as if your high blood pressure affects your ability to perform in any day? Like,
I don't know, not really. I don't really feel odd or anything like that.
Not
If I
when
do,
you're
I don't
exercising.
necessarily relate it to my blood pressure. There's been occasionally I'll get an arrhythmia when I run at a very high intensity for a long time, but I don't know if that has anything to do with my blood pressure. It's more of just a genetic predisposition sort of thing.
are you nervous about the course that your blood pressure is going to take over time, or do you feel like you have exercise pretty well balanced for your life?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, yeah, certainly. It's a little bit elevated. I don't think it's in a range that is really to the point where it might manifest itself to cause me harm, but who knows over time. I tend to be in a stressful environment quite a bit of my days. So, like, for example, you guys are getting ready to do a presentation, and you're probably a little nervous about that. My whole life has been an evaluation professionally, so everything I do is evaluated all the time.
So a little bit of white coat hypertension.
That definitely is part of it. I always get nervous when someone takes my blood pressure because I always assume it's going to be a little elevated, and then that sort of makes me anxious and makes it elevated. Yeah.
Other than the stress, do you think there's any other reason that your blood pressure might be high, like genetics or diet?
Certainly, on my dad's side, there is a heritability factor there. My dad had severe hypertension for a long time. He was a CEO of a large construction company in Washington, D.C., and just a tremendous amount of stress, and his blood pressure was always elevated, and he was always on about 2 or 3 different types of blood pressure medication. But I got him off all of it with diet and exercise.
Really?
Whoa, that's so cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Dietary, yes. I'm from the South, so I tend to consume a lot of salt, and I really don't care about that. I don't like measure
You don't
salt.
do anything to change it, or you're not
No, and everyone that I'm ever around is like, Jesus, are you gonna put that much salt on your food? I just
You
like,
add salt to your food?
absolutely. Is that surprising?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't add salt to your food?
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I
But
add
I'm
a ton.
probably not, so. not
Sometimes I do.
You do? Yeah, I add a ton to my food. Relatively speaking, because I'm healthy, but.
Right. So, do you have any advice for people suffering from hypertension?
It is a serious thing. The silent killer it's referred to often in the literature. The reason they call it the silent killer is because it goes undiagnosed quite a bit. So certainly recommend that they get their blood pressure taken quite frequently and think about diet and exercise as the first line of defense, and then if it doesn't get under control, maybe some pharmacology.
Right, and you have firsthand experience with the fact that you can use exercise as a sole treatment, because that's what your father did, right?
Yeah, it took him a number of years after he retired. He started a really, and I mean like comparable to like what Pritikin did back in the 80s and Dean Ornish. So a very extreme exercise regimen and diet. So really limiting salt intake. And my dad at the age of 67 was running 50 or 60 miles a week. So the severity of hypertension, is pretty, so he had to do a considerable amount of activity and diet to really be able to control that without any drugs.
Was he overweight beforehand, or?
No, maybe a
Not
little.
really,
Yeah, maybe a
okay.
little bit. Maybe 20 or 30 pounds overweight.
Well, they actually say in the literature that even a 10-pound reduction can really help your hypertension.
That makes sense. So are you saying I should lose 10 pounds?
No.
Yep, get running.
Yeah. I might waste away.
All right. I think
Thank
that's
you
all we
for
have. Thank you.
talking to us today.
Certainly, it was a pleasure.